Today's episode is brought to you by Rovo, your AI teammate from Atlassian.
So, Damon, today I thought we could start talking about team bosses. And you drove for three very characterful team bosses, Frank Williams, Tom Walkinshaw, EJ. Mm-hmm. They were the owners of those teams, and you were talking to the boss when you were talking to him. So what were your recollections of that dynamic, and how did it feel?
Yeah, so you were very close. The teams were smaller. Back in when I was driving, it was 150 people at Williams, and that was a big team. So, and if you went back not much further than that, then, 50 people, 60 people, it started off with like 20 people maximum would be a big team. So it was much more of a family feel to going racing. And in a lot of the cases, I'm thinking about Ron Dennis, for example, and Nicky Lauda and Alain Prost. They were similar ages. So the team principal, the team owner, the guy who managed to run it, or whatever you want to call them, they were almost the same age. I suppose Ken Tyrrell was quite a bit older than Jackie Stewart, and Enzo would be older than some of the people that raced him. But there was a time when in the 80s particularly, the people who ran the team were almost the same age as the drivers were. Yeah. And so that relationship was very different. And I think
you were the generation after that, weren't you? So
I was just coming in after. So I was starting to slip out of that mold. I mean, if I talk about Alan Jones and Keke Rosberg, Williams drivers, they might even have been older than Frank. I don't know, but they were almost the same age as Patrick and Frank. So having a tough conversation with someone who's the same age as you is different to if they've got an age advantage. So when I was at Williams, I thought of myself as junior to Frank, and someone who had to respect him, and I found it more difficult, I think, to be someone who could insist on things, perhaps, or be forceful, because he had a natural authority of having been around for a long time. But they were very important to those teams because they gave the team the culture. And they had every right to, because they owned the teams. They'd started the teams. It's eponymous. It was the Williams team, Ferrari team, if you want to call it that as well, named after the founder, Tyrrell, and so forth. And McLaren was different in that Ron was actually an employee of the team, but he was a founder member, but he started
Project 4, which
MP4, which is where But I mean, he with Neil Trundle, so he started that team up. But he eventually was sold. It sold off different parts of it, but he wasn't the complete owner of the team. But he represented the team in a massive way and gave the culture to the entire team.
Yeah. So, what were those cultures like? Williams, Arrows, Jordan. How compare and contrast? What were they like? Again,
the team changed according to the team principal, the team owner. So Eddie clearly was someone who was gregarious and irreverent, and he created the idea, I think, in the team that they were rebellious, or they were sort of mavericks, I suppose. They were there to undermine the establishment, which would have been Ron and Frank. They were going to do things differently.
Yeah. But now it's team principal's become a devalued title, hasn't it? You're more or less an employee now, in most cases, not all. So you just, I don't know, you think, how can you have the vision if you're not empowered in that same way? How can you say, I want to get there and this is how I'm going to do it? Because so they're just really in an employee position, just the same as anyone else on the team, really.
I'm not sure whether the TP, so the person on the pit wall, so the Lauren Mekis now, who's at Red Bull. I mean, Christian would have gone to all the team boss meetings. I'm not sure whether he does or not, because there's another job which the team principal used to have, which was to do the deal with all the other teams and work out how the whole pie was to be divided.
Yeah.
And so you have to go back to the early 80s when Bernie started, well, the 70s really, I suppose, when Bernie started bringing teams together to make this financial agreement between the teams and keeping everyone together and divvying up whatever proceeds there were. And that was another. So if you imagine the skill set you need to be able to run a race team versus being able to go into negotiation with Bernie Ecclestone and the rest of them, quite different kind of characters you need for that.
Yeah. As the sport has got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so the size has sort of gone exponential as well. And so those roles get, you can't have one guy with his arms around the whole thing anymore, I guess. And I think that is sort of, we're still adapting. The sport is still adapting to that. Formula One is. And when you see, for example, recently we had John Elkann, who's head of Stellantis as well as the holding group which owns Ferrari, being publicly critical of his drivers, but is one step removed from the operation of the team. That's a tricky dynamic, isn't it? I mean, I think when you're in the middle of that, it's changing all the time, and it's still changing as the valuation of Formula One is still going crazy. I think the sport is changing in ways we're not quite sure where it's going yet.
Yeah, and also you have to say that one of the attractions, I think, of the sport was this incredibly Machiavellian kind of fighting of the barons would come together, and people were interested in that. They were interested in what was the divisions between teams, and the thought that some teams were aligned with each other and doing deals, but it all added to the pot of intrigue that made the sport attractive, I think, to fans and in all different levels. So I often thought that there's people who are interested in the engineering, and obviously people who are interested in the business side of things as much as there are people interested in watching cars go around the circles or following racing drivers. So it's got a multifaceted appeal, but clearly that's changed a bit now since if you're talking about the evolution, we don't have the founder bosses anymore. I mean, Christian Horner was probably the last one, wasn't he?
He was traditional, but he the reason it sort of one of the key reasons it fell apart was he didn't have
ownership,
equity in the team. And that was the fault line. That's what broke it apart. But up until that point, he was super effective because he was given the reins to do as he saw fit, and he just built that team up. Made all the right hires, and he had that vision that like a traditional team owner would have had. And I think you look at Ferrari, the last prolonged period of success at Ferrari was in the Michael Schumacher era, which you had Ross Brawn, Michael and John Todd, and they formed what Ross described to me once as a force field to keep upper management out.
And they were probably the first model of how a modern day F1 team should be run.
Should run.
Yeah, because they delegated different responsibilities, and John Todd has to be credited, I suppose, with putting Ross Brawn and saying, right, I'm not going to interfere with that bit. You are going to do the technicals. That's your forte. Yeah. And I'll do the politics. I'll do the making sure we're not going to get the rules to go the wrong way. You tell me what you need. And that's what makes this sport really fascinating, is that the battle is fought also with the regulations, with the FIA. Of course. And there'll be meetings where, what's the technical working group or whatever it was called? I don't know if they still have that. But anyway, they will be sitting down, these new regs that are coming in for next year. Yeah. They've not just, the FIA haven't just gone, okay, here they are. Yeah. Actually, they were involved with Pat Simmons as well at Formula One, so they've done them partly.
Yeah, but they've gone back and forward and back and forth.
They've gone backwards and forwards, an iteration process whereby hopefully they've arrived at in a kind of true democratic way, they've arrived hopefully at the right solution, one that is best fit or satisfies the most parties, to make a car that is good for entertainment as well, because this you've got Liberty involved in now, and so the whole style of Formula One really has. I think we're only just at the foothills of this new era, where you've got valuations of race teams going up to 4.6 billion
pounds. Yeah.
Well, no individual, only very few individuals. Elon Musk probably could afford to just buy one as a frippery.
Yeah.
And
well, the 5% stake, which is said to be what we're talking about, is worth 230 million quid.
Right.
So that's just, I mean,
that would have been enough to buy a Formula One team a while ago.
Well, not that long ago would have been enough. 4.6. If it's 4.6 billion, you could have bought the sport.
Buy the sport. Buy two of them.
To buy two of them, yeah.
3.
So, yeah, I think that blueprint that you talked about, is Ross and John, and they basically said, look at them on Zemlo, give us a budget, leave us alone. And they protected each other's back to make sure that happened. And it lasted for as long as until they all got exhausted with winning. But I think if you look at McLaren now, they've got a version of that with Zach Brown looking after the commercial side of it and Andrea Stella doing the racing.
And that's a good point. I mean, it's very much that model, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's also, I don't think he's got equity in the team. I think he...
Andrew,
No. No, I don't think Zach has.
No.
I think it's all owned by the Bahrain.
By the Bahrain,
yeah. So they basically, but he's done the job of going in there and setting it all up, putting it on the right track and everything and so forth. We will see over time those individuals will move on to do something else. They'll outgrow it, or they'll have had enough of it. But then you'll have new people have to be brought in, and what they don't have is complete autonomy over the product. Because the Ken Tyrrells, it was his team. He could say what goes and so forth. And that made a culture which increasingly Formula One is, and drivers I think represent this. Drivers are much more professional than they were when I was racing and the era before me. They were what's the word? They were
Mavericks.
Yeah, they were mavericks. They didn't fit in society. It's like you ran away to join the circus. I don't want to do normal life.
But for me,
be a racing driver.
That's what that was the appeal of it,
and that was the appeal. But where in the world now can you go and do that?
I don't know. But is the current generation that's coming into Formula One and watching as fans? Does that interest them?
That's a good point. I mean, you've got a totally different world for them.
Yeah.
And there'll be people. So when I stopped at the turn of the millennium, the last millennium, basically
1,000 years old, Damon.
I was from the last 1,000 years, and but 25 years ago, so you got 25-year-olds who weren't born when I stopped racing, and they've never known a world without the internet. They've never known a world without mobile phones or computers, and now probably social media too. So they are the consumer who will decide whether they like Formula One. So Formula One, in the sense, it's no good. They don't have a concept of a team owner as such, as the personality. So it's moving. Maybe I suppose the model is more football. That the team is established. It's got the name Arsenal or whatever it is, and Newcastle. Probably in your case, is it? Anyway, and Newcastle. I beg your pardon. But I'm from the south.
I make allowances.
So yeah, that's the entity, and so Ferrari, I suppose, is the model of that. Plus, you have actual car manufacturers and brand names associated, so they've got to have Mercedes. The obvious example is that anything that happens in the F1 team is going to have an impact also on them, on their brand. So they have to be really careful. But getting back to my point, it was that the drivers have been coached from a much earlier age in all the right. We say right. They're coached to understand that what they say is going to have an effect. They're coached to understand that there's different aspects to being professional. And I think you see that in football as well. You see that in other sports. But when you could say that the sport we loved was when these crazy bastards drove. They They were mad. They were crazy. The Villeneuves and the Joneses and the Hunts. They lived the wildlife, and that seems to be increasingly impossible. And some will say that's a good thing, but it's also part of the show. So leaving room. So I think that the new TPs will not be those maverick types, or they won't be the people who are able to say, I don't care because I own it. So take the high road.
Yeah.
And the Eddie Jordans and co will not be able to do their stuff in the same way because they don't own the team. They're just employees. And
Lawrence Stroll owns his team.
He does.
Slightly different though, isn't it? Because he hasn't come in from and build it up.
Yeah. So we had a previous little chat about that, didn't we? That basically, my impression is that there are people who come to the sport and learn it from the top down. And then there's those that have worked from the ground up, like the Ron Dennises, and you might say Andrea Stellas or something like that. You know, they've been in at the ground level, or even Stefano Domenicali. Yeah. So they do get it, but maybe they've never risen to the heights of someone like Lawrence Stroll, who can buy an entire Formula One team. And a car company. But you're learning backwards that way. Yeah. And it's quite difficult, I think, to get a handle. You can waste a lot of money.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's difficult, it's expensive as well. Yeah. And I'm sure Lawrence would confirm that. But he does seem, to me at least, he does seem to be slowly over time making the right moves. He does seem to be learning how to do it. And a lot of very successful businessmen come into motor racing in all forms and assume because of being successful in business, they'll be successful in this. But I think running a Formula One team, especially a modern day Formula One team, is probably one of the most complex managerial exercises that exists on the planet. Probably more difficult than run a car company, an automotive company, just in terms of the nuances and how they're always changing and how you've got to keep on top of that. And that dynamic between your engineering and the people and what everybody else is doing, the sort of game theory aspect of it, I think is just extraordinary. And I don't think just because you've been successful elsewhere, you will automatically be that. And I think if you were being critical of someone like John Elkann, I think he would need that. Does he fully understand that distinction between being successful in the world that he's been in and looking at something that he's in charge of and not being satisfied with its success? And then how do you take the appropriate action? And I think that's where it gets very tricky when you have the power but not the experience and the feel for it all.
So he has the power to completely demoralize and demotivate the entire organisation, and make them feel nervous, which is the last thing you want.
Absolutely.
I mean, Toto clearly, I think, is someone who he's had the financial experience, so he understands can talk on a board of Mercedes, be a member there, and he understands their language and also money, and he also understands a team and creating a culture whereby the no blame culture, famously, he tried to instill in Mercedes, which was, we're not looking for culprits, we're trying to learn from mistakes, and that's a modern way of thinking. And so he's managed to do that, but then you could argue it's not a fair comparison because he's come up through motorsport. He always wanted to do motor racing. And then he started with the German touring cars, running there, Mercedes Motorsport. So he's as much ingrained with him as a manager. He embodies those two different skill sets you need. I mean, but I think, what the entertainment needs is they need the head. I suppose that they will be like football coaches. It's not impossible to imagine a charismatic football coach type person being put in a position at the team to get results by the board, by the owners, by Mercedes, whoever it is, and also providing entertainment, because that still exists in football. Yeah, but I think it is much. They're juggling many more different things, as you say. It's the technology. Yeah. it takes, you can't, I'm sure that there'll be people who've got all the money like Lawrence Stroll and go, well, I want a wind tunnel, then I want it to work. And you tell me it doesn't work and I've just spent 50 million or 100 million on it. Why isn't it working?
It's the wrong one.
Yeah, exactly. So, Adrian did say something. I think he went, we're going to have to start again.
Simulators it's going to take us about 5 years to put that right.
Yeah, great. Not what you want to. Yeah, I just paid a fortune to get you to come and tell me. It's like plumbers, isn't it? Yeah. When they tell it, go, I don't know who did that.
Yeah.
They always do it, don't they? Oh, dear, you should have got me first. Anyway.
It's going to take me 5 years to sort this out.
Well, let's see. It's going to be a lot cheaper to get your plumbing fixed, I think. But yeah, so it is interesting where we're at. We're seeing an evolution. Is it better? Is it a better show? Are those characters, they're more beholden, aren't they, for their jobs to the team? They're less likely to say something controversial, I think, or entertaining. Than the Jordans. Not that Frank said anything entertaining. He did once or twice say something pithy. Patrick Head was much more entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
what's the most pithy thing Frank ever said to you?
Oh God! I think there was something. There was a back page of the Sun that was one word. It wasn't terribly complimentary.
Yeah.
But no, he was a man of few words.
Yeah.
You knew him probably better than I did.
Well, no, I don't think so.
No, you don't think so. No, but. Yeah, he was. He knew that people like we're doing. Yeah. There's a lot of talk about stuff in Formula One, but actually, it's what you do.
He could do a very good impression of me because he was originally from South Shields, so he'd do an impression of me asking a question.
Did he really?
Yeah, it was very good.
That's another side to him that I never saw. He didn't do an impression of me.
Today's video is brought to you by Rovo, your AI teammate from Atlassian. Rovo connects knowledge, people and workflows so teams can work smarter and move faster. It helps people find answers, make decisions and automate work securely and with context through search, chat, agents and studio. Rovo runs on the Teamwork Graph, Atlassian's intelligent layer that unifies data across all of your first and third-party apps so no knowledge gets left behind, and so you always get personalised AI insights from day one. And the best news? It's already built into Jira, Confluence and Jira Service Management paid subscriptions, so the power of Rovo is already at your fingertips. Know the feeling when AI turns from tool to teammate. If you Rovo, you know. Discover Rovo, AI that knows your business, powered by Atlassian. Get started at ROV, as in victory, o.com today.
But was there a downside to that, to having the boss plugged into the mains power directly? Was there a downside to that for you? Do you feel like more victim of the whims of?
Well, I think if you got a person, Frank was on the floor of the factory every day. Mm-hmm. He'd go down, he'd see the people in the factory, he'd be there. He lived in the factory. So if you've got an issue, you go to him because he knows what you're talking about. He knows. So, whereas with you got these removed entities like the Elkins, perhaps. How do you get to speak to them? If you're an employee, if there's 1,200 people, can you pick up the phone to Toto? Via some sort of other route, maybe you can express your opinion, but you're less likely to, I would think.
Yeah, you might get told you should stop talking and just concentrate on driving.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they don't say it to us because we can't drive and we've got to talk, so we'd be ruined. But yeah, so I think it is. We are losing that dimension to the sport. With the teams are there, but they're becoming more protected from anything that is approaching an individual personality, because they're, as you know, in business, they're worried about. People worry about an interview. They might do anything. You don't know what they're going to do. They could go off the rails. They could say something stupid. So they're a risk, but they are really the dimension. It was a dimension that made Formula One very, very interesting and intriguing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I remember we were talking before about how a team boss used to have to go in and do the negotiation with all the other teams and do the negotiation with the FIA and manage the books of the team and then run the team. I remember Patrick telling me a little anecdote once about the six-wheeler that they developed in the early 80s. And it was 4-driven wheels at the back and little small wheels. And it was fantastically fast because what it did was increase the size of the venturi, so it had massively more ground effect than a conventional car, and it didn't have the big wheels in the way of the exits.
Clever.
They were testing it with first Alan Jones and later Keke Rosberg, and they hadn't yet got to the point where they could race it because the transmission wasn't yet reliable and things like. The other thing it had was fantastic traction in the wet because the first set of wheels would clear a dry patch for the second set, which would really push.
Yeah,
it was just
lots of benefits to that.
Perfect. It was brilliant. And Patrick said Frank had been off to the latest meeting with the team bosses and the FIA, and he come back, and Patrick said, anything get decided? And Frank said, no, not much. We voted through the ban on four-wheel drive. And he said, you did what? He said, yeah, well, why? He said, well, what have we just been doing for the last 2 years? He said, oh, I knew it was a six-wheeler. I didn't know it was four-wheel drive.
God. Yeah. That's why communication is so important, isn't it?
Yeah. You can imagine Patrick on
I think that was constantly Patrick's frustration. Frank was doing that sort of thing all the time because it was his team. Yeah. Ultimately.
Yes.
And, and I think he just thought, well, I can do what I like. But he's also, going into a meeting I have no idea, but you hear these stories, and there's some great books out there about how it used to be and how it was all put together. But FOCA meetings would have been entertaining, and you hear anecdotal stories about who said what to what, and to whom, and all the goings on, and people like Max Mosley going through the waste paper basket because they'd thrown all their notes away and then finding out exactly what they were thinking and all this stuff. It was very, from our point of view, it was quite funny. Yeah. Because we weren't involved. It didn't cost us millions and millions of pounds. But, it was a small family, wasn't it? Yeah. And that's the problem. It was a cliquey thing, small family, and they fought like absolute animals with each other. Yeah. And it was ruthless as hell, the Piranha Club famously. Yeah, yeah. But it had to stop, I guess, if you want to go beyond. And I think that's what's happened to Formula One now. It has gone beyond because Bernie had his limitations. Mm-hmm. He didn't understand social media. Yeah. He didn't understand the internet. He didn't understand where extra value could come from, whereas Liberty have. Yeah. And I think we thought the end of the Bernie era was the absolute top of the value of Formula One, didn't we? Well, I mean, he famously sold, he sold a slug of F1 without asking all the other other FOCA members, and that's where it all started to get a bit who owns this anyway kind of argument. And but the slug he sold valued, who was the financier that bought it now? The banker, the German banker guy. I don't know when you're talking about the Deutsche Bank guy. No, that was another story. I think. Okay. But we can't go. But the point is that the valuation made Formula One worth 1.2 billion or something. Yeah, and I remember thinking, I'd never heard of a billion anything before. Associated with money. Pounds, dollars, pesetas. I never heard of a billion in money of anything. And that, of course, is just small fry now. It's but this inexorable rise in value. Yeah. Because it's gone to another level. But as it expands, it's attracting more. Yeah. They're thinking, right, this is the new ground floor, and I think that's right, yeah. And then they go in, they go, how much is it? It's 4.6. They go, okay. Where do I sign? Yeah, will it be 10 next year? No, it sounds ridiculous, but it was only a year before the Brad Pitt film, which was the latest boost to the valuation of F1, because these teams are franchises, so the valuation of F1 and the teams incredible. Is just incredible. The most successful product that's Apple TV films have produced, and the most successful film that Brad Pitt's been in. Yes. I mean, it's unbelievable. So people inevitably they're going, what is this thing, Formula One? Yeah. And that's just off the back of a previous boost of Netflix, so the Drive to Survive. So beyond Bernie's imaginings, if you can believe that, and we used to think Bernie thought bigger than everyone else. I mean, because when I stopped racing, he was doing digital TV. He's invested quite a lot of money and a massive amount of money into this thing called digital television. And he was always 20 years ahead. So he saw that something's coming down the line and it's pay-per-view and it's digital. He was right. It's just he was 20 years too soon.
Yeah.
And then it's the same with China. You know, he had a Grand Prix in China 20 years before it started to come on to, on song. But what's happened since is this ability now for fans to engage in their own way. So now we watch and we think nothing of it, but you'll see a different angle of an incident that the TV cameras didn't catch. I mean, for instance, Bortoletto's accident in, oh my God. I mean, you watch that from the grandstand, someone's videoing it. Yeah. It's a lot more shocking than it was from the TV coverage. Yeah. But that's been allowed by Liberty. They said, okay, you can film. You'll take your cameras to the track, film stuff. We won't stop you, which is bigger picture, stuff, was beyond. I think those guys, because they went into a board meeting with only 10 other guys, they felt very much like people are trying to get in and we need to stop them trying to take our stuff. And it was more very protective. Yeah. You're not having it. And the more I say to you, you can't have it, the more you'll want it. And the higher the price goes.
Well, as recently as 2007, 2008, after the Photoshop industrial espionage scandal, so-called scandal.
Oh, you mean the Coughlin?
Yeah. So
Stepney-gate.
Stepney-gate. Is that what we call it that?
Yeah.
There was apparently a meeting with the team bosses and Bernie, and Ron was saying, okay, he accepts that they have to pay the fine, but the position in the Constructors' Championship, all the points are deleted. Okay, fair enough. But can we still have the money as though we'd had those points? And so Bernie said, well, it's not up to me, it's up to the other guys, isn't it? So so he gets them all together, and Bernie says, right, Ron wants to make a little speech to you. So he put the case forward, and he prepared his notes and give his case, and Ron said, okay, I've put my case, I'll leave the room now. And apparently Bernie said, right, who wants to hand all the money over to Ron? Hands up. Yeah. No hands came up.
No hands.
Sorry, Ron, I asked, but that's how it was.
It's probably the wrong arena, wasn't it? Sort of asking for clemency or any kind of pity in that world is not going to get very far. But it is an example of how it was run. That was an example of the world that it was, which it's now. So really 10 people sort of ran the sport. Yeah. 10, well, because Max and Bernie. Yeah. And then you had also the previous president. Anyway, Max represented the FIA, but not all the time. It was only latterly that he represented the FIA. But the FIA were involved, but not in a financial way. And of course, that is another big discussion as to how did it all go so wrong with the FIA? They had the rights to the sport, and they lost it to Bernie, but over time. But when you come to sell the sport, they're going to ask the question, well, who owns it? And you can say, well, we own the commercial rights. And they'll go, yes. And what are you saying? Well, it's like saying you can buy the commercial rights to a house, but you can't own the land that it's on, or something like that, because the FIA are important in representing the sport legally. So in a global sense, who do you go to when you're talking about the sport? It's, if you want to do business, you go to F1. But if you want to talk about legitimizing it, then the FIA are the people who can say we've legitimately checked this out and it's okay. That's a
legally sport. Qualified enough to make a call on that. But how do you define what the ground rent is?
So like you're going to get the mother-in-law, whether you like it or not. No, or father-in-law. I'm going to get into trouble for that. But anyway, that's So, well, I don't know what that means. But there you are. It's always interesting. It was. It's still.
It is, and but I think it's going to be interesting to see how it develops from here with this, if this is the new sort of ground floor. So how is that role of team boss going to evolve?
It's a take me to your leader question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So can I speak to which leader do you want to speak to?
Yes.
And you go, well, I don't know. Who's in charge of who's ultimately in charge of it?
Yeah, what's your question?
We got Mercedes or the board. You might speak to the board of Mercedes, or you can speak to Toto, but he's only a small shareholder. And and they'll speak to the guy on the pit wall.
Yeah.
Oh, but he doesn't own it anymore.
He's got no.
And we don't know how long he's going to be there.
When the board's not happy. I mean, a lot of the guys who are very successful team principals now are engineers, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you get.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes,
makes sense. Yeah.
It seems to be becoming more of a trend now that role really needs somebody with an engineering background, and so that's further probably decoupling the two roles, the boss and the guy actually running the show.
Yeah, and
it's just really, it all comes from the expansion of the sport, the commercial expansion of the sport.
Or the dilution of influence and power.
Yes,
maybe.
Yes,
as well. So it's the way of the world, perhaps. That we are all becoming subject to some much more ultimate, power, and it may be AI eventually, but the way they're talking. But we are powerless, if you like, to be completely autonomous. And the idea of starting from scratch in this sport is to it's laughable. You're going to be 50 years before you get anywhere. 10 years at least. Starting from scratch. Of course, Cadillac are starting from scratch.
Yeah,
but so that's an interesting point. There's now going to be 11 teams, and they are starting from scratch. But they've managed to do the negotiation with the other teams and convince them that it's fair that they should come in. They kept raising the price, didn't they? Because of course that means that there's less pie to go around. They're not having someone turning up now and just helping themselves to a slice.
Yeah, they're saying our participation will increase the slice, the size of the cake,
and they had to show that.
Yeah, and therefore your smaller slice will actually be worth more than your big slice at the moment.
And it seems to be true at the moment.
As it's expanding, everybody's happy. It's
an ever expanding universe, isn't it, Mark? Apparently. But they keep changing their mind.
Yeah, there's different theories on that now.
Yeah, every other month there's a new theory.
Yes,
that it's contracting. So with F1 anyway, it's expanding.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good thing.
Is it?
It's just it's getting bigger. The audience is going up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's plateaued yet in America because
No, I think it's still going up in America.
It's still going up, and I do think that we've got a whole new influx of young people.
Average age has come right down. Yeah.
So I tell this story that since the Netflix thing, there's these kids who were the same age as my children. We used to go on holiday with the family, and their kids would, they never asked me about Formula One ever. Okay, and then. But a couple of Christmases ago, they go, "Hey, you used to be in Formula One, didn't you? Do you ever watch Netflix?" And it's like, bingo, suddenly I exist because I was a Formula One driver, and that's because of F1. They were not interested before. Yeah. So that has been a phenomenal success in hooking people into the drama. Yeah. And I know that some drivers don't like it. They think it's over-engineered. Mm-hmm. As a story, but they're, like it or not, they're benefiting. They are benefiting because they go to America. They're well known.
Max is very critical of that aspect of it, isn't he? Yeah, he benefits, as you say, because his salary is derived from the worth, but the commercial worth of the sport. But he's sort of more old school in that regard, isn't he? And I think because he's so successful, he can be more natural, I guess. Yeah,
I think people can think of it as a pure sport in the sense that they want to just drive. They just want to. They don't want all the stuff that comes with the obligations. Perhaps you have to observe, but there's no way of doing it. someone's got to pay for it. I mean, the question is, do you need 4.6 million or whatever it is, or 150 million to buy? I mean, you could argue the budget cap for one Formula One team would pay for an entire series, because F2 budget is what, 2 million, probably 3 million by now. I don't know, but that's you've got enough. 20 cars, 20 times 3.
Yeah.
You don't need 150 million. You could run it. So the question is, can you provide the entertainment? And is that one of the things that will be considered? Is that how can we reduce the cost of the product? Will the teams be implicated? The owners of the team, let's say there's people now that own as an investment, which with Alpine, it's got a combined ownership, hasn't it? They might be saying, okay, well, why are we having to spend so much on the driver or this? Do we to reduce the outgoings to increase the revenue? But the cost cap actually does solve that aspect a bit, doesn't it?
Because before the more money you got in, the more you throw at the car, make it faster and faster and faster. Whereas now that sort of has to stop, and money that's coming in is just spread among the shareholders.
It's an odd thing to think that a sport that is so incredibly competitive as Formula One has evolved an almost tall poppy kind of mechanism whereby nobody gets too far ahead. I mean, if you suggested that in politics, you might say, well, that's a kind of socialist state, isn't it? Yeah.
Is F1 socialist? Is that what you're saying?
I think I think it has presented
a fascinating aspect of it.
I think that it has presented a workable,
and it's become more successful as a result of adopting that.
I mean, if you were to say, okay, Elon Musk and co, you're only allowed to earn so much individually, or there was a cost capping element or to income, let's say, then they would force the revenue to go. People would say that would mean that there's no motivation, but of course the motivation in our sport comes from the fact that people want to race and want to win, and that people want to watch it.
Yeah.
So the product is always going to be there. What it stopped is a unsustainable expansion and a dominance in the sport of people with more money. And I was hearing on the radio talking about the Professional Footballers Association talking about revenues for footballers, because now they're earning £500,000 a week or something ridiculous, footballers. So they are the expenditure in the same way in our sport that the cars are the expenditure and the teams are. I mean, why do you need 1,200 people? No, I want those 1,200 people to have jobs, don't get me wrong. But if a team is given money, it would spend it. With Frank would. Frank would argue, I don't want to pay the drivers. I want my car to go faster. Yeah. So I want to spend it on the car, and I want to spend it on the personnel. And if you gave him a trillion, he would have spent it all on the car, and he would still pay the driver a minuscule amount of money.
Yeah.
So, but that's the problem, is that you're in an arms race then.
Yeah. And they've one or two teams that just go dung, 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 and the others just go fall away.
Yeah.
And it was there, that phenomenon was there. I mean,
which they fixed.
Yeah, they did fix.
They fixed it.
Yeah. And there was a time, 92, so your first season when you were in the Brabham. I don't know how far off the pace that was 6-7 seconds or something?
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah.
They wouldn't get past the 100. Did they have 107%?
I don't know.
Then? But anyway,
110.
I wish they had.
Yeah. You wouldn't have to drive it on Sundays. But I think if you qualified 2 seconds off the Williams pace, then you'd be on the second, third row.
Yeah. We had quite a big advantage. It was quite nice. Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't very good for watching the race.
No, so that has been fixed. So there's aspects of it that have worked brilliantly well.
Yeah.
But I think the sport will just take in whatever's there in the outside world to go faster.
But it's recognised that if let's say somebody finds a tweak. Well, next year we're going to find out. 2026. Yes. If someone has found a method to dominate for the next 10 years, like Mercedes did, Liberty have said we don't want that. We want a close racing. So, what have they put in place apart from the cost cap and the resource restrictions? I suppose that they are the solution. Ultimately, they will be, but otherwise, it's acknowledged that something needs to be put in place. They might bring in something else to say, okay, if we've got this all wrong, and I was thinking, what if you had a kind of show and tell rule where you say, okay, on a date, everyone has to reveal their cars and they have to reveal a certain amount of information, the technical information about that car in advance of the first race. And if anybody, one thing for sure, people wouldn't actually be sure which one's going to be good, but at least if they had an insight into how a team is beating them, they would be able to do something about catching up at the start of the season. And then you'd be watching this kind of levelling out process as it goes through the season.
You imagine selling that idea to Frank or Ron?
Well, but Bernie turned up as Anderstorp, didn't he, with the fan car?
Yeah.
He said, it's not good for the sport.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it has happened. I mean, it may not be necessary. It may just be next year everything's going to be very close. But, a rule change is always a risk. But
would you fancy being a team boss?
I think in my sort of my lazy fantasies world, I've been a team boss. I think every driver has sort of thought to themselves, I can, but I don't think every driver wants to go into the office every day. I mean, Christian was in his office every day, pretty much. If he wasn't there, he was at a racetrack.
Or he was out trying to get money.
Or he was at a blooming team meeting somewhere. It's full on, and I'm certainly, I'm 65 now, so it's not going to happen like that. But if they're going to subdivide the rules and make it so you need a guy that just swans around.
You're on the map.
Sign me up.
Oh, excellent.